If this message touched even the smallest corner of your heart, then I invite you, no, I urge you, to watch this video from start to end, not just with your eyes, but with your soul. Let every word echo in the places you've kept silent. Let the tears fall if they must. Let your heart feel what it's been too strong to admit, because this is more than a video. It's a mirror, a companion, a quiet hand reaching out to say, you are not alone. So pause the noise around you. Find a moment just for yourself, and press play from beginning to end. Let it speak to your pain. Let it stir your courage. Let it remind you who you are and how far you've come. You may just find the strength to rise again, one silent, beautiful whisper at a time. There are moments in life when the sky seems to fall on you, when every door shuts, when the world whispers you can't. And life, in its harshest voice, says no. But in that silence, I found my voice. In the wreckage, I built my strength, and when life said no, I didn't scream, I didn't fight, I whispered. Yes, because sometimes it is in the quietest yes that the loudest transformation begins. Not because the path was easy, but because the spirit was unbreakable. So today I want to take you on a journey, not of perfection but of perseverance, not of ease but of elevation, a journey of a soul that refused to be caged by circumstances. Because the world may break your bones, but it cannot break your will. If you dare to whisper yes, there comes a moment in every life when the path suddenly breaks, when what once felt certain is torn away, and what once held promise turns into pain. In that moment, it's easy to believe that life is over, that what has been lost can never return, that the cracks in your heart and in your destiny will never be whole again. But what if I told you that those very cracks are where the light begins to pour in? What if the pain that brought you to your knees is the very soil where your strength is planted? What if your setback is not the end, but the beginning, the birthplace of your comeback? You see, life doesn't warn us before it changes. It doesn't knock politely before entering with a storm. It arrives unannounced, unexpected, and unapologetic. One moment you're dreaming, the next you're drowning. And yet in that chaos, in that utter disarray of emotion and shattered expectations, something extraordinary begins to stir, a whisper, almost imperceptible, that says, this is not the end. It is in that whisper, often ignored by the noise of despair, that the seeds of your comeback are sown. Think of the strongest trees that stand tall in the wilderness. They have been through storms you and I could never imagine. Their trunks have been split by lightning, their roots have grappled with drought, and their leaves have fallen in seasons of loss. But they stand not in spite of the storms, but because of them. Your life is no different. The pain you are feeling now, the disappointment that's gripping your heart, is not your final chapter. It is your formation ground. It is where you are forged. It is where your truth, your power, your real voice is discovered. Setbacks feel like punishment, like betrayal, but maybe they are invitations, invitations to sit with yourself, to meet the version of you that only emerges in suffering, the you that cannot be broken, only bent, the you that doesn't need applause or validation, because you've sat in the silence of your own soul and made peace with it. Setbacks strip you of everything external, and all that is left is your essence. That is where your comeback begins, not when things change on the outside, but when you change on the inside. I have learned that what seems like the end is often the moment just before something new is born. The world may not see it, and you may not even believe it, but inside your brokenness there is an awakening happening. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It quietly begins to rebuild what was lost, not in the same way, but in a better way. You are not going back to who you were. You are becoming someone new, someone wiser, more grounded, more connected to what truly matters. Pain teaches you what pleasure never can. It teaches you humility, patience, empathy. It deepens your understanding of the human experience. And once you've walked through your own fire, you no longer fear it. You carry your ashes with dignity. You wear your scars like medals, not wounds. Because now you know you can survive. You know that even in your darkest hour there was a flicker of light within you that refused to go out. There's a strange beauty in being brought to your knees. It humbles you. It strips away the illusion of control, but it also brings you closer to your center, to that place inside you that no external circumstance can touch. The part of you that whispers, "Get up," not because it's easy, but because you're still here. And when you begin to rise, even shakily, even slowly, something shifts in the universe. It's as if the world begins to move in your favor again, not because it owes you anything, but because you have aligned with your purpose. We often wait for perfect conditions to try again, to hope again, to live again. But the comeback never waits for perfection. It begins in the chaos. It begins when you decide that failure is not where your story ends. It begins when you look at what broke you and you choose to build anyway, not on what was, but on what can be. The comeback is messy. It is filled with doubt and fear, but it is real, it is yours, and it is waiting on the other side of your decision to not give up. What people see when you rise is only the result. They don't see the nights you cried silently, the days you felt invisible, the moments you questioned your worth, but you know, and that knowing gives you a strength that cannot be taken. You've been in the fire, you've walked through loss, and yet here you are breathing, and that breath is proof that the story isn't finished. That breath is the first line of the next chapter. Setbacks are not signs of failure, they are part of the process. You were never meant to rise without falling. You were never meant to grow without first being broken. Even the seed must break open before it grows. So why do we shame our own breaking? Why do we call our pain weakness? It is not weakness, it is the passage. The sacred, difficult, painful passage through which transformation comes. Sometimes life removes the things we think we need so we can discover what truly matters. It clears the path violently, painfully, so we can walk a new one. And in that clearing, in that vast and frightening emptiness, something new is planted, a different dream, a deeper purpose, a more authentic self. One that is not chasing perfection but embracing truth, one that is not defined by success but by the strength to begin again. Setbacks aren't just obstacles, they are invitations, they are lessons. They are mirrors reflecting who you are beneath the noise. They show you what's inside you, your grit, your grace, your soul. They show you that you can be knocked down and still get up, that you can lose everything and still find yourself, that you can be broken and still be beautiful. So don't curse the setback, sit with it, learn from it, rise because of it, let it shape you. Let it sharpen you. Let it burn away what was never truly yours. And then walk forward not as the person you were, but as the person you were always meant to become. Strength is often misunderstood. We imagine it as loud, as bold, as something that roars through the noise and commands attention. But true strength is rarely that dramatic. It doesn't always come with applause or acknowledgement. It doesn't always stand tall in the spotlight. More often, it lives in the quiet moments, in the stillness. In the invisible battles fought in the silence of the soul, strength isn't loud, it's silent resilience. It is the calm voice that says, "I will try again tomorrow," even when today felt like it broke every part of you. There's a kind of resilience that doesn't make headlines. It doesn't post on social media or gather sympathy. It is the resilience of waking up with a broken heart and still making breakfast for your children. The strength of going to work when your mind is heavy and your spirit is tired. The quiet fortitude of someone who shows up every single day, not because it's easy, but because giving up is simply not an option. That kind of strength doesn't shout, it whispers, it endures, it holds on when everything screams to let go. We live in a world that celebrates noise, that confuses volume with value, but the strongest people are not always the loudest in the room. Often they are the ones listening, observing, absorbing life's pain with grace and dignity. They carry the weight of the world not because they chose to, but because life demanded it and they refuse to crumble. Silent resilience is not passive, it is not weakness. It is the highest form of courage because it requires you to fight battles no one sees and to heal in places no one applauds. There is a sacredness in that kind of strength. A depth, it comes from walking through darkness without a map, from being lost in grief or rejection or failure, and choosing somehow to keep going. It is the decision to breathe through the panic. To smile when you want to cry, to extend kindness when you have every reason to be bitter. This resilience does not need recognition, because it is rooted in truth, not performance. It is not here to impress, it is here to survive, to grow, to become. Think of the quiet strength of a mother who holds herself together for her children, even when her world is falling apart. The dignity of an elder who has endured more than words could ever express, yet still offers wisdom with a soft smile. The bravery of someone battling depression who simply gets out of bed and faces the day. These are not stories that make headlines, but they are the backbone of the human spirit. They are testaments to the kind of resilience that can never be measured in decibels or drama. Strength like this doesn't seek the spotlight because it has already found its worth in the shadows. It understands that surviving is enough, that you don't need to scream your pain to validate it, that healing is often a private journey. Silent resilience honors that. It gives you space to be broken and strong at the same time, to cry and still carry on, to doubt and still believe. It is the quiet, unwavering promise to yourself that you will not quit, no matter how long the road. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply keep going. Not run, not leap, just take one step, then another. This is the strength that carries people through heartbreak, through illness, through loss and trauma. It is built not in moments of ease, but in moments of surrender, when you have no choice but to trust yourself. When you realize that the only way through is forward, even if forward is painful, even if forward is slow. In a society that equates success with noise, this kind of strength is often overlooked. But it is everywhere. It's in the nurse who works double shifts and still smiles at her patients. It's in the student who studies by candlelight after working all day to support their family. It's in the refugee who leaves behind everything familiar in search of safety. Their stories may not be televised, but they are stories of triumph. They are proof that resilience doesn't need to be seen to be real. There is also a tenderness in silent strength, an empathy that comes from knowing suffering intimately. Those who have walked through fire often emerge with softer hearts, not harder ones. They become protectors of peace, carriers of light. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's filled with understanding, with compassion, with hard-earned wisdom. They don't need to convince anyone of their strength because they have lived it. They don't preach, they simply are, and their presence alone becomes a comfort to others. It's easy to be strong when life is kind, but true strength is revealed when everything falls apart, when the plans unravel, when the support disappears, when the only voice you hear is your own telling you to keep breathing, to hold on. That's where silent resilience is born. It comes not from a lack of fear, but from the courage to face that fear, to walk beside it, to not let it dictate your worth. Silent resilience is also deeply connected to self-respect. It means honoring your own journey, even when others don't understand it. It means knowing when to rest, when to say no, when to walk away from what no longer serves you. This strength isn't about enduring abuse or accepting suffering blindly. It's about choosing yourself. It's about standing firm in your values even when it costs you something. It's about integrity, about living in alignment with your truth, regardless of how quietly that truth is lived. When you are silently resilient, you become your own shelter. You stop waiting for someone to save you because you've learned how to be your own safe place. You become rooted, grounded, not immune to pain, but no longer defined by it. You start to see that surviving is not a D, or from your purpose, it is your purpose. That every challenge you face is carving out a stronger, more compassionate version of you, and even if no one sees it, you know what you've overcome. There is an inner fire that grows from this resilience, a quiet knowing, a sense that you can endure, adapt, and even bloom in the hardest seasons. And when you begin to see your own strength clearly, not in comparison, not in competition, but in truth, everything changes. The world may never applaud your survival, but you will, and that self-recognition becomes your power. It becomes the foundation on which you build a life not just of existence, but of meaning. You are not defined by what broke you, but by how you rise. This truth often arrives after the storm, when the winds have quieted and the pieces of your life lay scattered at your feet. In the moment of breaking, it is natural to feel that this is who you are now, shattered, unworthy, lost. Pain has a way of convincing us that it has rewritten our identity. It tells us that we are our failure, our loss, our trauma, but pain lies. And if we are willing to listen beyond the ache, we begin to hear another voice, softer but stronger. The voice that says this is not who you are. This is where you start again. The world tends to remember people by their victories. It celebrates the peak, the triumph, the end result, but the truest parts of a person are forged in the valley, in the silence, in the deeply personal and often invisible act of rising after being broken. What defines you is not the moment you were knocked down, but the moment you chose to stand back up. That choice, quiet and lonely as it may be, is where transformation begins. It is not a grand gesture. It is a flicker of willpower, a whisper of hope, a trembling but determined not yet. There is no shame in being broken. Every heart has its cracks. Every life carries scars. To be human is to be touched by both love and loss, by both joy and grief. But what makes a soul extraordinary is not the absence of pain. It is the refusal to surrender to it. Some of the most radiant souls you will ever meet have endured unimaginable darkness, and yet they shine. Not because they were never broken, but because they chose not to let that breaking be the end of their story. When life brings you to your knees, when it strips away everything you thought you needed, you are left with only one thing, the choice of who you will become now. Will you remain buried in the rubble, or will you rise, different but not defeated? The rise does not happen all at once. It is a slow unfolding, a day by day reclaiming of your strength. Some days it looks like courage. Other days it looks like survival. But each moment you choose to keep moving is a defiance of the darkness that tried to consume you. There is a quiet kind of dignity in the decision to rise. It does not always come with clarity or confidence. Often it comes with trembling hands and tear-streaked cheeks, but it comes. Rising does not mean forgetting what broke you. It means refusing to be reduced by it. It means acknowledging the pain, honoring the grief, and still choosing to build something beautiful in its wake. You may not have asked for the breaking, but you get to decide what you do with it. Some people will never understand the strength it took to get back up. They will see your smile and think you never suffered. They will see your success and not know the price you paid for it. But you will know. You will know the nights you spent in silence, the mornings you dragged yourself out of despair, the steps you took when every part of you wanted to stop. That knowing becomes your quiet power. It becomes the bedrock of your identity. Not the pain, but the perseverance. Rising does not mean erasing the past. It means integrating it, learning from it, allowing it to shape you, not in bitterness, but in wisdom. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the failure, they become part of your tapestry, not the whole picture, but the threads that add depth and color. Your pain becomes your teacher. Your wounds become windows. And through them, you see the world and yourself with new eyes, more compassionate, more courageous, more whole. You are not what happened to you. You are what you chose to become in response. That choice may not have been easy. It may have cost you everything, but it is yours. No one can take it, and no one can diminish it. Some rises are loud and public, filled with applause and celebration. Others are silent, witnessed only by the stars and your own soul. Both are sacred, both are real, and both are worthy of honor. There is power in owning your rise, not as a victory over others, but as a victory over the parts of yourself that doubted, feared, or gave in. Every time you stood back up, you proved that your spirit was stronger than your circumstances, that you were willing to believe in a future even when the present was unbearable, that you refused to be defined by what went wrong and chose instead to be defined by what you made right again. The story of your rise is not about perfection. It is about presence, about being present with your pain, your hope, your fear, your desire, about allowing all of it to coexist and still choosing to move forward. Rising is not a straight line, it is a spiral. You will revisit old wounds, you will question your progress, but each time you come back to yourself, each time you choose love over fear, hope over despair, you rise a little higher. Sometimes rising means setting boundaries, saying no to what once broke you. Sometimes it means speaking up, taking space, claiming your worth. Sometimes it means forgiving yourself for all the ways you tried to survive. Rising is not always graceful. It can be messy and complicated and full of contradictions, but it is real, it is raw, and it is yours. You are not meant to be perfect. You are meant to be whole, to live fully even with your scars. To create meaning from your pain, to offer others the light you found in your darkest hour. When you rise, you become a mirror for others, a reminder that they too can get back up, that they are not alone. That brokenness is not the end. It is often the beginning of the most meaningful chapters. And maybe, just maybe, the reason you were broken was not to be destroyed, but to be rebuilt into someone more compassionate, more resilient, more awake to the beauty of this life. Because when you rise, you carry with you the lessons, the grace, the strength that can only be earned through falling and getting back up again. You are not defined by what broke you. You are defined by how you rise.